Emma Parker always believed her life was steady and predictable. She lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Seattle with her husband Mark, a man she had loved for 12 years. Their house was small but warm, filled with framed photographs of vacations, birthdays, and simple moments that built their marriage. Life felt comfortable, almost too comfortable at times, but Emma never complained. She knew comfort was a blessing many people didn't get. But everything shifted on one cold Friday evening in October. The rain had been falling since morning, tapping gently against the windows like a reminder of old memories that never fully disappeared. Emma was in the kitchen preparing dinner when she heard a familiar voice at the door, one she hadn't heard in years. "Emma?" The voice called softly. She turned, and there he was. Daniel Roberts, her husband's closest friend since college. The man who used to visit so often, he became part of the family. The one who suddenly moved to Toronto 5 years ago and slowly faded out of their daily lives. Emma froze for a moment. She couldn't help staring. Daniel looked older now. In a bad way, just different. His hair was slightly shorter, his shoulders a bit heavier, his eyes quieter. He smiled, but there was something behind that smile Emma recognized instantly. Sadness, or maybe loneliness. "The kind that comes from carrying something too long, Daniel," she said, stepping forward. "You're here. I mean, you didn't tell us you were coming?" He shrugged lightly, the way someone does when they're trying not to reveal too much. "Last-minute trip. Didn't want to bother anyone." Mark rushed in then, loud and cheerful, wrapping Daniel in a tight hug. The two men laughed, talked over each other, and began recalling old stories without taking a breath. Emma watched them for a moment, smiling. But the quiet ache in Daniel's eyes didn't leave her mind. Dinner was warm and simple soup. Homemade bread, Mark's constant jokes. But while Mark talked nonstop, Daniel ate quietly, nodding, smiling politely, but never fully present. Emma noticed every small detail. The way he stared at the framed picture of their wedding on the shelf. The way his fingers kept tapping against his glass like he was anxious. The way he avoided meeting her eyes for too long. When the meal was over, Mark yawned and stretched. He had been working extra hours all week and was clearly exhausted. "I'm turning in," he said, patting Daniel's back. "You to catch up if you want. You haven't talked in forever." And just like that, he walked upstairs, leaving Emma and Daniel alone in the dimly lit living room. The silence felt heavy. Like the first quiet moment after a storm, Daniel sat on the couch, his hands clasped tightly together. Emma sat across from him, waiting for him to speak. She didn't know what to ask, what to say, or how to ease whatever was sitting on his chest. "You're quiet," she said gently. He looked up, forcing a small smile. "A lot on my mind." Emma nodded, giving him space. She had always been good at letting people talk in their own time. Daniel looked around the room again. The bookshelf, the lamp, the memories carved into each corner of the home. Finally, he let out a slow breath. "Emma, I'm not here just because of work." She straightened, sensing the shift. "I figured," she replied softly. He rubbed his hands together. "I came because I needed to see something for myself. Or maybe I needed to say something I've been holding in for years." Emma felt her heartbeat quicken. She wasn't sure why. Maybe it was the tone of his voice, soft, honest, almost frightened. Or maybe it was because she had always known there were things left unsaid between the three of them. Small emotions tucked into the corners of old memories. "Daniel," she said, leaning forward, "what's going on?" He hesitated. His eyes glistened in the warm lamplight. Not with tears, but with something deeper, regret, maybe? Or a truth he didn't want to reveal but couldn't hide anymore. "I've been carrying something for a long time," he said. "Something I never had the courage to tell you. Something I shouldn't carry anymore." Emma's breath caught. The air in the room felt thick, almost too still. "What is it?" she whispered. Daniel swallowed hard. "Before you and Mark got married? Before everything settled the way it did?" He paused, looking down at his hands. "I had feelings for you, real ones, and I never told you. I never told anyone." Emma sat frozen, her heart thudding. She didn't expect that. She didn't know what she expected, but it wasn't this. A part of her felt stunned. Another part felt strangely calm. She remembered bits of the past old conversations with Daniel, long walks as a group. The way he used to look at her sometimes, but quickly look away. She never imagined it meant anything. She never let herself imagine it. Daniel shook his head, almost ashamed. I'm not saying this to complicate your life or your marriage. I swear, I can't keep carrying it. I needed to say it at least once. To the person it actually matters to. Emma inhaled slowly. She could see how hard this moment was for him. How long he had held these words inside. How much they had shaped him, even if he never showed it before. Daniel, she began carefully. I don't know what to say. You don't have to say anything, he whispered. I'm not expecting anything from you. I'm not trying to change anything. I just needed to tell the truth before I leave again. Emma looked at him, really looked at him. This wasn't a man trying to disrupt a marriage. This was someone trying to free himself from a shadow that had followed him for years. Thank you for trusting me, she said. And she meant it. But deep inside, she also felt a new weta mix of emotions she didn't want to name. Not attraction. Not longing. But something emotional. Something human. Something tied to the past and the person Daniel once was in her life. Daniel leaned back, his shoulders lowering just a little. The confession had been heavy, and Emma could see it lift off him. But the moment felt far from over. If anything, it was only the beginning, because then Daniel said the words that sent another quiet tremor through Emma's heart. There's something else, need to tell you. Something important. The room fell silent again. The rain tapped louder against the windows. Emma felt the story was just beginning. Emma sat completely still. Daniel's confession hovered in the air like a quiet echo that refused to fade. She had expected many things that night talkward small talk. Memories, maybe a little distance from someone who had been away too long. But she never expected this. A truth buried for years. Suddenly rising between them, Daniel looked away as if afraid of what he might see on her face. His fingers moved nervously across his knee, and for a moment he looked nothing like the confident, steady man she had always known. Instead, he looked vulnerable, almost lost. I didn't come here to make you uncomfortable, he said finally, his voice low. I just needed to say it at least once in my life. I needed to let it out so I could move forward. Emma swallowed hard. Her mind raced through old memories. She remembered how Daniel used to help her carry groceries when Mark worked late. She remembered how he made her laugh so easily. She remembered how he looked at her when she wore her engagement ring for the first time happy. But with a sadness she never understood. Now she did. Daniel, she whispered, why now? Why after all these years? He let out a small breath. Because I've tried to bury it for too long. And running away didn't help. Moving to Toronto, working nonstop, staying busy. Nothing erased the truth. Emma listened quietly. She didn't interrupt, even when her heart felt tight. The truth, he continued, is that loving you wasn't the problem. The problem was pretending I didn't. Emma felt a quiet ache in her chest. There was no romantic pull, no inappropriate feelings, just a deep, heavy compassion for what he must have gone through silently all those years. You should have told me, she said softly. Though she wasn't sure that was completely true, Daniel shook his head gently. I couldn't. You chose Mark, and Mark is my friend, my closest friend. I would never have done anything to come between you two. There was honesty in every word. Emma believed him. Daniel had always been loyal to Mark, too loyal to ever cross a boundary. Does Mark know? She asked carefully. No, Daniel said quickly. And he never needs to. This isn't his burden to carry. It's mine. Emma nodded, understanding the weight of that choice. She didn't know what the right response was. Nothing about the moment felt simple. Yet she didn't feel anger or fear, just a deep human sadness for a story that never happened. Daniel leaned forward slightly, elbows on his knees. I used to think I'd get over it. That time would fix it. But time doesn't heal everything. It just teaches you how to hide it better." Emma's eyes softened. "Are you still carrying it now?" He hesitated. "Not the way I used to. I don't expect anything. I don't want anything. I'm not in love with you the same way anymore. But I still feel something when I see you. Not hope, not longing, just a memory I never allowed myself to share." Emma understood. Some emotions don't disappear, they just settle deeper. "So why did you come here tonight?" she asked. His answer came slowly, almost carefully. "Because before I leave again, before I disappear back into my life in Toronto, I wanted to say goodbye to the version of you I once loved. And to the version of me that believed something might happen someday." Emma felt the weight of those words. This wasn't a man trying to reopen old doors. This was a man trying to close one gently. But then his voice changed, more serious, almost shaky. "There's something else," he said. "Something I didn't plan to say, but I feel like I have to. One last thing." Emma's heartbeat quickened. She wasn't afraid, just uncertain. "What is it?" she asked quietly. Daniel ran a hand through his hair. He looked exhausted from holding everything inside. "I have one wish," he said carefully. "A wish I've kept for years but never had the courage to voice." Emma waited, her stomach tightening. His tone didn't sound romantic or dangerous. It sounded heavy, emotional, important. "It's not what you think," he added quickly, as if reading her expression. "I would never disrespect your marriage. I would never ask for anything inappropriate. My wish is nothing like that." Emma nodded slowly, though her heart kept pounding. "What is your wish?" she asked. Daniel stared down at his hands as if choosing his words with precision. "I want one honest day with you," said finally. "Just one. A day where we talk about the things we never talked about. A day to walk around the city like old friends. A day to say everything clearly so I can finally let go the right way." Emma was silent. Not because the request was wrong, it wasn't. There was nothing romantic or inappropriate about it. It was simply human, emotional, honest, but it still startled her. "Daniel, why do you need that?" she asked gently. He looked up, his eyes tired but sincere. "Because closure doesn't happen alone. I've tried to move on without it, but I feel stuck. I don't want to carry this anymore. I don't want any part of my past to shadow your marriage or my friendship with Mark. I want to walk away knowing I truly let go." Emma felt her heart soften. She didn't feel threatened. She didn't feel confused. She felt empathy for his lonely journey, for his silent pain, for the life he never allowed himself to imagine. Still, she hesitated. "And after that day? I go back to Toronto," he said. "I live my life. I move on. For real this time." The room fell quiet again. Rain continued softly tapping at the windows. Emma watched Daniel, not the man who once had feelings for her, but the man who cared enough to walk away from them. She finally spoke. "Your wish. It isn't wrong. I just don't know what Mark would think." Daniel nodded immediately. "If you say no, I'll accept it. If you think it would hurt him, I'll leave tonight and never bring it up again. I don't want to cause trouble. I only want peace." Emma looked at him for a long moment, her emotions tangled but calm. Then she said softly, "Let me think." Daniel nodded, understanding. He didn't push. He didn't plead. He simply sat back, relieved that she listened. But deep inside, Emma knew one thing. Whatever she decided, this night had already changed something inside her. Not in a dangerous way, not in a forbidden way, but in a way that made her see the weight of the past, the complexity of hearts, and the quiet pain people carry alone. And as she stood to turn off the living room lights, she felt Daniel's eyes follow her, not with longing, but with gratitude that he had finally spoken his truth, and tomorrow she would decide what to do with it. Emma barely slept that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind replaying every word Daniel had said. His confession, his honesty, his wish for one simple day, a day of talking. A day of closure. A day to let go of a past he had carried alone. Nothing about the request was wrong. Nothing crossed emotional lines. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't inappropriate. But it was personal, far more personal than she expected her husband's friend to ever share with her. Mark slept peacefully beside her, unaware of the emotional storm happening just a few feet away. Around 6 a.m., Emma quietly got out of bed, went to the kitchen, and made herself tea. She thought better when the house was quiet. When morning light had just begun touching the kitchen counters, as she stirred her cup, she heard soft footsteps behind her. Couldn't sleep either? Daniel asked gently. Emma turned. He stood near the doorway wearing the same clothes from the night before, though he looked slightly more rested. Or maybe he just looked relieved that the truth was finally out after years of silence. I kept thinking, she admitted. I know, Daniel said softly. I didn't mean to cause you stress. You didn't, she replied, even though they both knew that wasn't completely true. I want to understand what you're really asking for. Daniel moved slowly into the kitchen and sat down, leaving plenty of space between them. He didn't push closer, didn't try to make the moment anything more than a simple conversation. I meant exactly what I said last night, told her, his voice steady. Nothing more, nothing less. Emma took a breath and joined him at the table. The morning sun filtered through the window, making the moment feel calm in a way the night didn't. I know what you said, she replied, but I want you to explain it again, just so I hear it clearly. Daniel nodded, accepting that she needed clarity. I don't want to reopen old emotions, he began, and I don't want to place any burden on you. My wish is simple. I just want one day, a day where we're honest, a day for closure. But why do you need closure with me? She asked quietly. Daniel paused, thinking deeply. Because you're the only person tied to that old part of me. The part that loved without saying anything. If I don't talk to you not romantically, just honestly, I feel like I'll carry that unfinished story forever. Emma listened carefully. There was sincerity in every word. Not desire, not longing, just a man trying to release something heavy. So you want a day where we walk around the city? She asked. Yes, he said. A day where we talk about the past, about choices, about who we became. Nothing dramatic. Nothing inappropriate, just closure. Exactly. Emma really looked at him then. She saw not the man who once had feelings for her, but the man who had lived with silent guilt, silent confusion, silent regret. The man who left town because he didn't know how to watch her build a life with someone else he cared about. And after that day, Emma said, You'll go back to Toronto and move on. Daniel nodded. Completely. I want to be free of the what-ifs. I want to focus on the life in front of me. Emma took a slow breath. The more he spoke, the more she understood. His wish wasn't about her. It was about him healing. About him letting go in a healthy, honest way. And maybe about her too. Maybe closure was something both of them didn't know they needed. She finally responded. If we do this, it has to be clear, respectful, safe. Nothing that hurts Mark. I would never allow anything to hurt Mark, Daniel said immediately. He's like family to me. His words were sincere. For a moment, Emma felt a soft, warmth comfort, not attraction. A reminder of why they had all been close friends once, before she could reply. Mark came into the kitchen, stretching and yawning. Daniel instantly shifted into his usual polite self. Emma forced a smile and poured Mark his coffee. She wasn't hiding anything wrong, but she wasn't ready to share the emotional weight either. Not until she understood it herself. After breakfast, Mark left for work. Daniel stood by the door, ready to leave too. Think about it, he said gently. Whatever you decide, I'll accept. And if the answer is no, I'll leave tonight and never bring it up again. Emma nodded. When the door closed. The house felt strangely quiet, like it was waiting for her to make a choice. By afternoon, she found herself replaying memories she had long forgotten. The time she got sick in college and Daniel brought her soup because Mark was stuck at work. The time he helped her move into her first apartment. The times he almost said something but didn't. She hadn't realized how much of her past. Daniel was woven into not romantically, but meaningfully. Around 5 p.m., Daniel sent a simple message. If you want that day, I'll be at the waterfront tomorrow at noon. If you don't show up, I'll understand. And I'll let go quietly. Emma stared at her phone, her pulse quickening. This wasn't a secret meeting. It wasn't forbidden. But it was emotional, human, honest, and important. She didn't reply. She didn't need to. The next day, she walked to the waterfront. Daniel stood, waiting at the edge of the pier, hands in his pockets, looking out at the calm water. When he heard her footsteps, he turned in. To look in his eyes wasn't hope or excitement. It was gratitude, relief, peace. You came, he said. Yes, she replied, her voice soft but steady. I think we both need this. He nodded. And their day began, not with tension, not with romance, not with old longing, but with something much deeper, to people choosing to be honest for the first time in years. They walked along the waterfront, talking about how life had stretched, twisted, and shaped them. They talked about mistakes, about fears, about choices. They talked without rushing, without pretending, without hiding. Daniel spoke openly. Emma listened with empathy. And slowly, the weight Daniel had carried for years began to dissolve. He didn't reach for her hand. She didn't move closer. There were no lingering glances, no crossed boundaries, only truth, only closure, only healing. At one point, Daniel said quietly, I'm finally letting go. And Emma believed him. The sun dipped lower, painting the sky in oranges and golds. As they walked back toward the city, Emma realized something unexpected. This day wasn't about old feelings. It wasn't about what might have been. It was about freeing the past so it could stop touching the future. When they finally reached the end of the pier, Daniel looked at her and whispered, Thank you. You don't know how much today meant. Emma nodded. She did know, because it meant something to her too. And as they turned to leave, Emma felt a strange calm wash over her. Tomorrow, everything would change. Not in a dramatic way, not in a dangerous way, but in a quiet, life-shaping way. Their day of closure had begun, and it wasn't over yet. The sun began to set as Emma and Daniel finished their quiet walk along the waterfront. The sky turned a warm orange mixed with soft purple clouds. It looked like a painting, beautiful yet fading fast. Emma felt the same inside. The day had been full of truth and quiet healing. But now the end was approaching. And with it came a strange heaviness she hadn't expected. They stopped near a wooden railing that overlooked the water. The waves were gentle, brushing against the shore as if whispering their own stories. Daniel leaned his arms on the railing and took a deep breath. This is the first time I've felt light in years, he said quietly. Emma stood beside him. I'm glad you told me everything. Glad you listened, he replied. You didn't have to come today. You didn't have to do any of this. Emma looked at him. He wasn't saying the words with guilt or expectation, only sincerity. She understood then that this day wasn't about reopening old emotions. It was about finally giving both of them peace. What happens now? She asked gently. Daniel straightened up. His expression was calm, but she saw the sadness behind his eyes. Now I leave, he said simply. But this time, I'm leaving without anything left inside me. Emma nodded, even though her chest tightened. Toronto will feel different now. He smiled a little. Maybe in a good way. They began walking again, slower this time, as if neither wanted the day to end, even though they both knew it had to. A comfortable silence settled between them. Not awkward, not heavy, just peaceful. At one point, Daniel stopped and turned to her. Can I ask you something? Of course, she said. When you look back years from now, what will you remember about today? Emma looked out at the water, thinking carefully. I'll remember honesty, she said. I'll remember how brave you were to tell the truth. And I'll remember the feeling that some things don't have to be acted on to matter. Daniel's shoulders relaxed. Her answer seemed to ease some unspoken worry he'd been carrying. "And you?" she asked. He looked at her gently, almost fondly. "I'll remember that you showed up. You didn't owe me this, but you gave me something I can never repay." They reached a long pathway lined with tall trees. The leaves rustled softly in the wind, and the air carried that cool early evening freshness that always made Seattle feel calm and familiar. "This part feels strange," Daniel admitted as they walked. "The saying goodbye part." "Akita," Emma agreed, because this time he continued, "the goodbye has meaning." Emma understood. For years, Daniel had left without closure. He had always walked away carrying something heavy. Now, for the first time, he was walking away lighter. They stopped near the parking lot where Daniel's rental car was parked. The place was almost empty except for a few scattered cars and a couple walking a dog in the distance. "This is it," Daniel said, rubbing the back of his neck. "The last moment of a very long story." Emma smiled softly. A story that never needed to become something else. "Exactly," he said. He opened the car door but didn't step in yet. He turned back to her. "Emma, I want you to promise me something." She raised her eyebrows. "What kind of promise?" "Promise me you won't carry any guilt about today. I never wanted that. I never wanted you to feel like you were doing anything wrong." "I don't feel that way," she said honestly. "Today helped both of us." He let out a relieved breath. "Good. That's all I needed." A quiet moment passed between them, warm, but not romantic. Emotional, but not dangerous. Just two people understanding each other deeply for the first time. Emma reached out and gently touched his arm. "You're going to be okay." He nodded slowly. "I believe that now." She stepped back. "Safe travels, Daniel," gave a small laugh. No dramatic farewell. Emma smiled. This whole day was dramatic enough. "Fair point," he said. He got into the car and started the engine. For a moment, he didn't drive away. He looked at her through the open window and said the words she wasn't expecting. "You were never the reason I stayed stuck. You were the reason I learned how to care deeply. Don't ever see yourself as anything else." Emma's eyes softened, but she stayed steady. "Thank you for telling me." He nodded once, firm and final. Then he rolled up the window and slowly drove out of the parking lot. Emma watched the car until it disappeared around the corner. She felt something shift inside her as it vanished. Not sadness, not regret, something gentler. Freedom, maybe? She walked home slowly. The evening air hugged her shoulders like a soft blanket. And for the first time in a long while, her mind felt quiet. When she reached the house, Mark was in the living room watching TV. He looked up and smiled. "Hey, where did you go?" he asked casually. Emma paused. Not because she was hiding anything, but because she wanted to choose her words with care. "I took a walk," she said truthfully. "I needed to clear my head today." Mark nodded, not sensing anything unusual. "Long day." "Yeah," she said softly. "A lot on my mind." He patted the couch. "Come sit. I made popcorn." Keem, Emma sat beside him. The warmth of her home felt different. Tonight's stronger, safer. As the movie played, Mark wrapped an arm around her. She leaned gently into him, appreciating the familiar comfort. Her heart didn't waver. There was no confusion, no secret desire, no emotional betrayal. She simply felt gratitude for her life, for her marriage, and for the closure Daniel had given her later that night. When the lights were off and the house was quiet, Emma sat on the edge of the bed and closed her eyes. She saw Daniel's face calm at the end, relieved, ready to move forward. She saw herself walking beside him, not as a woman caught between two men, but as a friend who helped him make peace with his past. The story didn't end in romance. It didn't end in regret. It ended in something rare and honest goodbye, and that goodbye made her marriage feel even more real, even more grounded. Because now there were no shadows, no what-ifs, no unspoken histories, just truth, just closure, just life moving forward. And somewhere in Toronto, Emma knew Daniel was finally doing the same.